With all of those assumptions about your unique scenario, what does this look like if we have a 3% inflation rate? So that $9,000 a month is going to grow at inflation, and our cash will grow at inflation, and our property values will go up with inflation. So that way we're tracking that appropriately. And then what's it look like if just on a straight line basis, the money that we're investing can grow at 7.4% annually straight line? And the way we came up with that is that's just a 60-40 portfolio, average historical return on a 60-40 with appropriate standard deviations. All right, so 3% inflation, 7.4% long-term rate of return. Make sense?
Yep.
All right, so let me show you what the plan actually looks like.
This is where it gets exciting.
What you can see is each one of these bars is an individual year of your retirement. So you can see that every year the bar kind of goes up. We get almost to 2030, and you can see that your consumable portfolio will have grown to about $2.4 million. We then go buy that house that we've been saving for. You guys continue working all the way out until age 65, and then at 65 when you retire, in today's dollars, because we've brought all this back into present value terms, in today's dollars, you would retire at 65 with about $3.5 million. Your portfolio would start providing for your living expense need. And what you notice is the portfolio continues to go all the way up until you guys leave this earth at age 95, and you leave behind about $8.3 million in today's dollars for the kids.
Crazy. Right.
So 8.3 million, think that'd be okay? Is that like an okay inheritance? Think that would work, right? Now, I do want to deviate one iota here because I don't think that 9,000 is the spending number we ought to be using. Because again, when we look at your budget, it looks like 12,000 was probably closer to the actual spend to maintain the standard of living that you guys want to maintain. Does that feel right? Does that feel?
Because with 9,000 we have like a little wiggle room, but with 12,000, that's when we can, afford to upgrade vehicles or go on vacations.
Got all
or
the
things
one-off
like that.
stuff.
Yeah, live the life that you ultimately want to live.
Yeah.
So watch what happens when I change this to 12,000. As you would expect, there's a meaningful impact to the plan. Right now, instead of you leaving this earth with $8.3 million, you leave this earth with $5.4 million. So that additional spending did cut out about $3 million out of the plan, but it's still pretty solid, right? So, but we do know that the market does not give us 7.4% rates of return every year. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to run this through a Monte Carlo simulation. And what this does is it runs 1,000 different iterations of 1,000 different possible market outcomes. Some of them really, really positive and some of them really, really negative. And the way the system works is it says of those 1,000 iterations, how many got us all the way to age 95 without us running out of money, without us having to change our behavior, without us having to cut back? And what you can see is if you were to work the way you're working right now all the way till age 65 and then retire, you have a 98% probability of success of not having to change your behavior. That means that 980 of the 1,000 scenarios got all the way into the plan with no behavioral change.
That's lovely.
Sounds pretty good, right? Sounds pretty comfortable. But that's if you work till 65.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Like, hey, Chris is like, this is cool.
I was letting Bo set it up, but we all know life has happened and there's all kind of other things. So we need to plan for other contingencies.
So then the question becomes, we've had this thing happen now where employment has changed and we're unsure exactly what future employment may look like. And so whenever we plan, we think about what's the worst case scenario. And worst case scenario would be, this is it. You are done. Today starts your retirement. So if today were to start your retirement, we have to adjust some of our assumptions. So one of those assumptions is we're not going to be working out till age 65. We're also not going to be saving the same way that we were saving, because now when we go down to one income, that's going to have to provide for living expenses. And then the other change that's going to take place is Social Security was built as though we were going to pay into the system all the way until 65. If you stop working now, well, you only paid into the system until 51. So your Social Security benefit would also have to decrease. So if you were to retire today and your Social Security also decreased, okay, now we have some problems, right? Like this doesn't look ideal. You can see that even on our straight line assumption, by age 84, the portfolio has been depleted. It's now gone to zero. For good measure, we have to look at the Monte Carlo simulation again to see what the probability of success is, you can see that now it's dropped to 37%.
Right.
So what that tells us immediately is we have a problem. So I'm going to pause there for a moment. Tell me where your mindset is right now.
Spending $12,000 a month, I mean, that's a lot for us. Because we have that excess wiggle room. We basically, we want to save 25% of our income, so we put that away. And then beyond that, it's just, this is money that we can use for whatever we want. So in some ways, it's not the amount of money. We would just do less things.
Yeah. So imagine one of the questions you're trying to ask is, okay, well, 12,000 doesn't work. Is there a number that does work? I mean, you tell me if that's a question you're curious about.
Well, I'm just trying to think, how much do I need to keep saving now for retirement? Because that will help me determine what kind of a job that I should get.
Sure.
Perfect.
I guess that's the main question. How much money should I be making right now
That's a great
until I
question.
can access retirement?
I love that because whenever we face problems, there's only two levers that people have to work with. And that, Brian, you say this all the time. There's two levers, only two things you can do when you're trying to solve a financial problem.
You can make more money or you can spend less. Those are the two levers. This is what I call the doo-doo plan. When we're putting on the 3D glasses, so I don't, and I say this for you,
I
Heather.
got a giggle for
well, no,
Heather.
but because I can see, and even our discussion as we were walking into the studio, Heather's probably a little nervous about this, just from some of our discussions. So that's why I'm telling you, this is as bad as it gets on the doo-doo plan. But the good news is this isn't actually what I think the down to earth plan is. I think that there's lots of alternatives, some levers that we're going to be able to pull. And Bo kind of laid out the dream plan. That was the 65 and all the other things. So now we've kind of given you, if you worked until 65 and all this, you're going to leave the earth with $1 gazillion, which was somewhat unrealistic. But now we're giving you this baseline of the doo-doo plan because some things life has happened.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Bo to fill in the gaps on kind of what the down-to-earth plan is, because that's where we start building this thing back.
Yeah.
So hopefully you leave here feeling like we at least paid respect to what opportunities you guys have.
So let's think about this, right? You said there's two levers. I can spend less or I can make more, increase my income. And you just said, hey, it'd be great if you could just tell me, if I got to go to another job, how much do I need to make? Like how much do I need to save? What does that number look like?
Okay.
Well, what we figured out, and again, I'm going to go back to our illustration because you can see we have this issue where we're kind of running out of money in our 80s if we just got the straight line, right? And it's a pretty low probability. We were actually able to go backdoor into the math and say, okay, if Chris were to be able to generate some sort of income and that income could provide for their living expenses, might you guys be in what's known as coast-fi? I've done enough saving up to this point that if I can just create enough income to cover my living expenses, I don't really have to save a whole lot more. I can just let my money continue to grow. And if I let my money continue to grow for a certain amount of time, it will grow to the point to where then it can provide for me. And so we said, okay, what would their coast-fi number be? If we're going to assume that Heather keeps working, how much would Chris have to go out and make so they don't really have to save anymore, but they could just live off of their incomes and provide for their living needs? And what we found was if you could get a job that pays $60,000 a year, or if you could side hustle and make $60,000 a year, you notice that on our straight line, it kind of flattens out. That, you start retirement, you have today a consumable portfolio of about $1.8 million. You live this life that we've laid out at a $12,000 a month burn rate. And you can see when you leave this earth, you leave behind about $1.8 million. It's kind of like you've lived off of the interest. So if we take this and we run it back through our Monte Carlo simulation, just assuming that you can bridge that gap, earning $60,000 from today until 65, well, now all of a sudden you're at an 81% probability of success. Just so you know, when we are doing assessments for clients, we say, hey, if we can get you above 80%, we feel really, really comfortable. Because what this is saying, it's not saying that In those 19% of scenarios, people ended up homeless on the side of the road. That's not what it's saying. In 19% of the scenarios, you might have had to tighten the belt a little bit. You might have had to,
which you go do naturally.
Instead of staying at 12,000, you might have had to go to 10,000. You might have had to, in the Great Recession, maybe you didn't buy the new car. You didn't go on the expensive trip. You just tighten the belt, which we all do when those sort of things happen.
And there's also the go-go years, the slow go, and the no-go years. It kind of, so you don't have to hit 100%.
That's right.
You don't have to hit 98%. I think I would feel good at 81%.
Okay.
So that actually changes things. Now, we still have more levers to pull, but before we do, give us feedback on these numbers.
Yeah, well, 60,000. That's not a big deal. I could make that.
You can make that. So that seems
Yeah.
like a pretty attainable goal
Yeah.
based on your skill set.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, how for like him doing the 60, that would be until 65.
That's
Okay.
what we modeled right here.
Okay.
Him earning $60,000 until
Till 65, and then fully retiring.
and then both of you
Okay.
fully retire.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, hopefully I'll be doing. If I'm earning that much money, it's doing something that I imagine I'd be doing that past 65 also.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
This may not be retirement. This may be next endeavor. It may be the next thing.
That's what I'm looking for.
I also heard you share earlier your heart of an educator is you do this. You just threw it out there on the down low about advanced robotics and stuff like that. And then you've even shared with us that you do some. You've done some teaching to like a cohort of homeschooled kids and other things. Is this something that could that generate $60,000, or is it going to take something plus that?
It could generate. I don't know if I could generate. See, the part robotics is really expensive,
Yeah.
and I would like to be able to help people who don't have as much money to be able to participate. So I
Yeah,
don't want
I love
to
that.
necessarily make a lot of money, but I can program and I can do stuff, contract work, and I don't have to work full time, and I could still make pretty good money doing that.
Okay,
Love that. So one of the things I think we ought to look at is what if you don't earn any more income? What if you actually have to figure out, okay, what is our real spend number? So what I want to do is I want to take away you working. Let's go back to the doo-doo plan where you are not in a good spot, where the portfolio does not have a high probability of success. And we said, okay, well, what's the spend number? How much could we actually spend starting right now every month for the rest of our lives and still have a high probability of success? And we were pretty excited to see that if you could drop your spending from $12,000 a month to $10,500 a month, the plan actually works. Again, you can see that you go from $8.3 million on the dream plan to now you're still leaving behind, when you leave this earth, about $1.5 million for the kids. So you have some cushion built in. When we take this and we run it back through the Monte Carlo simulation, looking at those 1,000 different scenarios, 1,000 different iterations, you can see that we're right there close to that 80%, right? Like we are right there within a stone's throw. So if you guys could say, okay, well, yeah, 9,000 was pretty lean and 12,000 is doing all the things we want to do, maybe 10,500 is that happy medium. Maybe that's somewhere that you could land and say, okay, well, I don't have to go work anymore. I don't have to generate income. But if we can spend at that level, it opens some doors, opens some opportunities.
A lot of our spending right now, again, comes from robotics. Robotics is just really expensive. We have one more season of it, and then that kind of goes away. So that spending goes down. We don't spend a lot. We don't really like. For vacations, I like to read books. It's not.
Have you read any really good ones in the last year? Is there like a book that you're like, this book in the last year was just so good?
Brian, you got the thing.
That's awesome. That's great. And what I hope you're recognizing is we're laying out individual scenarios. The real answer for you guys probably isn't one of these distinct scenarios. It's probably some combination therein.
Absolutely.
You may go make some income, and you may make $30,000 a year, and you may not spend $10,500. You may spend $11,000, but the combination of those shows you where the guardrails are. Because all we want you to, because you've had this incredibly uncertain thing happen in the last 24 hours. And what we want you to know is where the guardrails are. Okay, based on what we've done so far, what are the pieces and parts we need to know so that we can continue on the path that we're on and pull and adjust the appropriate levers. That's the peace of mind we want you guys to walk out of here with.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure I'm giving you guys enough space to kind of process and then even share what seeing these actual numbers does, not only to know it mathematically, but even as the relationships side of things.
Oh, it's definitely peace of mind knowing the route isn't all uphill.
You have options.
Yes.
You have options.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Good options.
That's a testament.
Yeah, not hard options either. It's
This isn't like, oh my God, we got a bowl, a bag of potatoes, and that's what we're going to be eating for the next week. You guys rock and roll for all the sacrifice early on.
Yeah.
You got good options.
Yeah. And, I look at the numbers a lot, and it is nice knowing that it's not just me because I can look at the numbers like, I think we're okay, but, I don't do this for a living. So it's kind of good confirmation.